What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves, physically, emotionally, and spiritually?
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them, visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies? Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to DoloresCannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Okay, before I introduce Dale, we just want to ask again. We are taping all of the talks, and they're on DVDs. When you do not have a microphone in your hand and you're asking a question, it's not getting on the DVD. And we really, really, really want it to be there. So wait till the microphone gets to you before you ask your question, okay? Please, please. Okay. Now, yes, thank you. All in compliance? Okay, you know these situations that happen, you know, these universally divined things that they're really cool when they happen. We had been looking for someone in the ghost arena, you know, just something from that angle and everything, and didn't know where to go. We'd heard of ghost hunters and all of that, and couldn't make any contact and stuff like that. And we're doing things with our mailing list, doing something with the mailing list, and this name, it actually jumped off of our mailing list. And I'm looking at it, and it's, you know, Ghost Research Society. I'm like, what? You know, because we've been looking and looking and looking, couldn't find our person and stuff. He's on our mailing list. You know, it's right there. And so I called him. At first I checked him out. It's, oh my goodness, this guy's fantastic. He's been even in this area and stuff, checking out spook lights and stuff, and just really cool stuff. And it's just, you know, of course I believe in ghosts. I mean, that's a given anymore, you know. But it was just really cool and just very, very impressive. He's from the Chicago area. He is president of the Ghost Research Society, and just really fascinating things. And like I said, he's been in all these different areas researching these things, and just some things that I had gotten some intuitive stuff about that it didn't make any sense. On his site, it was confirming it, and it was like, oh, then I know you're okay. I know you're good. But I want to give it over to Dale, and he's going to actually show you some ghost hunting techniques and everything, and machines and things that they use, and be some cool stuff. So, Dale Kaczmarek.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Dolores Cannon and Ozark Mountain Publishing for having me at the conference. It's really a pleasure. I learned a lot of things here myself, actually, today. My presentation is going to be a little bit of kind of a crash course on ghost hunting techniques, how you can actually pick up and find ghosts yourself with very inexpensive equipment, cameras, and so forth. I've been involved in ghost research for 33 years now, going back when I was a youngster myself. And I guess I kind of blamed this spooky hobby of mine on my parents, because they often told me ghost stories when I was a youngster. And being a very impressionable young man, young boy. I was very scared of these ghost stories, but always wanted to hear another one. I was just, maybe even had nightmares that night, but always wanted to hear another one. My mom and dad, when they were first dating, my dad's favorite thing to do on a Saturday night after a date was drive around a cemetery in Chicago called Resurrection Cemetery looking for a hitchhiking ghost with my mom, who was terrified in the front seat. So you can kind of see how these stories kind of filtered down to me, and eventually started in 1977 forming the Ghost Research Society, and been going strong for 30 years now, more than 30 years with the group. And during that time, we began investigating homes and businesses, public places, and all kind of places all across the country, often going on vacations to check out spook-like locations, Civil War battlefields, places where ghostly happenings had been experienced in the past. And one of the ways that we decided to better our chances of capturing a ghost was to try to get some equipment, buy equipment. Now, when I first started, basically back in the 70s, there wasn't anything except cameras and very bulky camcorders and tape recorders. That's all you really had back then. As technology kind of caught up, more and more devices started coming out that people could use or adapt to pick up ghosts. Now, there's not really what I would say is true ghost hunting equipment per se. You can't go to a store or Walmart or Radio Shack and say, I want some ghost hunting gear, because they just don't have it. So what you kind of have to do is make do with what's out there in the field, and kind of adapt that for your purposes. And that's what we've done in picking up various pieces of equipment along the way. So I'm going to show some slides here as I kind of go along here, a little bit, some of the different types of equipment. And as I mentioned, it's going to be kind of a crash course. I do a number of workshops, and normally the workshops last from an hour and a half to 2 hours, just talking about these things. I'm trying to fit this into like 45 minutes, kind of talk fast, but at the same time give you a good crash course. If any movie, any Hollywood movie ever did more for ghost hunting, obviously it was these guys. Ghostbusters, that came out in 1984. They were the ones that really kind of came up with this idea of hunting ghosts with equipment. If you remember, it was a farce. It was a parody, basically, on ghost hunting. I mean, we don't have radioactive nuclear backpacks, and we don't store ghosts in radioactive confinements. But we do have equipment that is a little bit similar to what they kind of had in the movie Ghostbusters. Now, ghosts generally, we know, can give off an energy of sorts. And when a ghost is present, things often happen in homes. Things such as movements of objects, electrical disturbances, television sets turning off and on, lights flickering, electrical type in nature. So therefore, if you get equipment that is useful in picking up electrical disturbances, you can then maybe find out if it's caused by a natural phenomena or perhaps something supernatural. Now, a very ordinary piece of equipment that people can pick up is an ordinary compass. Now, a compass will point to true north, magnetic north, unless it comes in contact with a very strong magnetic field, in which case it would deviate from north to wherever that magnetic field is. And unless you're near maybe a very powerful speaker that has a magnet in it, or a television set, or something that has a magnetic field around it, maybe you're out in the middle of nowhere and suddenly it's deviating, then you may have something there. So this is really a very inexpensive kind of ghost hunting tool that for those that don't have a high budget. Now, some of these things can go for several $1,000s. I really wanted to bring some of this equipment to actually demonstrate it, but because I had to fly from Chicago, and since 9/11, when you pack a lot of this stuff that looks like it's got batteries and so forth, they think you're packing bombs. So it's really kind of hard to get this stuff through security. And then I have to say, well, this is really for ghost hunting. Now, how would you think that would go over? Probably not too well. So I probably wouldn't have made it here today. So I thought it'd be easier just to show you some slides. And you can go to my website. I have some cards on my business cards at my table, and all this equipment is on my site with very descriptive information of where you can actually purchase it if you wish to yourself. This is called Dr. Gauze. It's one of the very first devices that came out. And it's only initially it came out for about $20. I think it's probably about 30 or 40 now. And it's useful in the fact that it does point out magnetic fields, but it points out everything, all magnetic fields. So you really have to differentiate for what's normal and what's not normal. If you get near an electrical outlet, if you get near a light pole or fixture or a strong magnetic field, it'll point towards that. It'll deviate. So we kind of use this sometimes to point out and pick out what's truly natural in the environment, kind of a base ground, so to speak. And then get into more expensive devices like this, which is called an MFD1, magnetic field detector, which is about a $49 to $50, $60 device. This has LED lights. Now these are devices that pick up deviations in milligauss, which is not to get real technical, but an increment of magnetic field. And the higher the concentration of magnetic field, stronger the field is, stronger if it's a ghost may be. Now again, these are devices that have other purposes. They're not true ghost hunting equipment, and you won't find that, but ones you can adapt towards what you're trying to do. This is good in an environment if you're perhaps totally in the dark, because it has lights that illuminate. They go up the bar, up and down. The higher they go, stronger the field. You get into a little more technical devices that you can actually detach away from the other device. It has a cord. A little kind of a blurry picture here, but it's a low resolution print here. It's called a cell sensor. Now you can find these in catalogs for about $70 to $80. Now what they do is they also have a needle that deflects to left and right, stronger field, has an audible signal and a little light that flashes, kind of like if you remember Star Trek, the red alert, a light, you know, boop, boop. And as you're going along, you can then pick up, you know, fields and energy of electromagnetic in nature. And a lot of ghost reports, again, have to do with electromagnetic fields. It's one area that a lot of researchers believe there is some credence to. Some sort of field generated by a ghost, or maybe the aftermath of a person's essence, if you will, that in some way puts a dent, if you will, in the normal EMF fields all around us. In this room, for instance, there's all kind of things that you don't see around us. There's cosmic rays, there's radio waves, television signals, X-rays, gamma rays, you know, all kind of things that, invisible radiation perhaps, that you don't necessarily see, but doesn't mean it's not here. It's all around us. And there could be, in a room like this, there could be several ghosts around us and we wouldn't know unless we had something to pick them out, or if you were intuitive or psychic, you might be able to, you know, feel that yourself. Uh-oh. Did I pull it out of the wall here? You know what it is? I think it's Dolores with the gremlins. Remember she mentioned that? I had all kind of things happen to me today. This is a very sensitive device. It's actually called a Sperry device. It's an LED EMF readout. And it's what's called a single axis EMF reader, which means it only picks up from the front. You have to point it directly at something. It doesn't pick up the left or the right. That would be like a triaxial field. And obviously, the more expensive a device you get, the more accurate it's going to be. You're going to pick up a lot less false signals, and you're going to pick up a lot more of things that may be not normal, that may be supernatural or supernormal. So some of these other devices, if your budget can afford it, is better to get the more expensive than the least expensive, obviously. This is the tool of choice, though, for almost every ghost hunter I've seen. I've been on a number of shows. I've been on Oprah. I've been on Sightings. I've been on Encounters, Mystery, Magic, and Miracles. And I've seen a lot of other people, a lot of other ghost hunters use this natural tri-field meter. Now, this device goes from anywhere from $179 to about $350, depending on which model you get. There's what's called just a tri-field meter, and this was actually called a tri-field natural EM meter, which is the top of the line system. Now, because I initially got these pieces of equipment from Alpha Labs in Salt Lake City, Utah, from a man who was building these devices and was trying to market them. And he wanted to have some people try them out. So guess what? We got 2 free ones. We didn't have to pay for them. Just to go through and look at them, test them out, and get them back test results to him. So he was more than willing to part with a couple of meters. Now we use these meters actually pick up a variety of different signals. They can break it down into simply magnetic, electrical energy, electromagnetic energy, or even pick up radio and microwave signals. So it's got a wide variety of sources. In the true electrical mode, it actually can be used as a motion detector. It'll actually pick up the biochemical electrical impulses given off by our own body. If you wave your hand in front of the device will pick up that energy that you give off. In the electromagnetic setting, it'll pick up both electrical and magnetic energies. But unfortunately, this device is so sensitive, it's best used in a stationary mode. In other words, you set it down, you put it in an area, and you wait for the needle to deflect. A lot of people don't know how to use these devices properly. I watch them on TV all the time. They're taking the devices and they're waving them all over the place. Now, and I'm waving my water all over the place here too. All that really does is you're moving the device through all the fields that are around us all the time. So in that case, you're getting a lot of false signals. The device is going to be going all over the place because you're moving it around. Once you set this device down and it settles down, it acclimates itself to what's around it, then if something moves through the area, which is more important to us, a moving electromagnetic field, then the device, the needle, will deflect. It'll come up and come down. Sometimes you'll pick up a static field, which is where the needle just hangs on maybe number 1, number 2, and just goes ee. Well, that's probably caused by something in the room. Electrical outlets, wiring, something of that nature. But once this device settles down and something goes past it, that's what we really look for. Moving fields, moving ghosts, moving energy of some kind. But again, these devices can be quite expensive. This is, get this in focus here a little bit. This is a device that was actually put together by one of my team members, Stan Suho, which is kind of our local electronics expert. And he's built a number of devices for the group. This is what's called a static field detector or negative ion detector. And what this picks up is static electricity. Again, another form of electrical energy. Similar to like walking across this rugged floor with shoes on and touching a metal object. You know how you get zapped? Well, that's the kind of static electricity we talk about. Now that's a form of energy that maybe a ghost can produce. We've gotten readings with this device, to give you an example, in Gettysburg, in the middle of the triangular field, where there's no carpeting, there's nothing to generate static electricity, and this is going off constantly. Or walking across a concrete floor where there is no static electricity, or very humid conditions, when the air is saturated and not dry. So those are instances where you kind of question what you're actually picking up, because there's nothing natural that could be causing that device to go off. Now, this device, really, I don't have a cost for it because it was put together using just parts from Radio Shack, believe it or not. But I've actually seen some electrostatic detectors for as high as $700. Other devices like the field strength meters can also be used to pick up signals of electrical in nature. These devices, we don't use that often because they're not as totally accurate as we initially had thought. They do give a lot of kind of strange readings, and this device you literally have to move around. It has a telescoping antenna you pull out, and you literally have to move it around until you get the highest signal, and then you stop there, and then you test this area further. This device probably goes for about $200 or so. We also use a device that many people might not think is even related to ghost hunting at all, Geiger counters. Now, Geiger counters pick up radiation. And we're constantly being bombarded all the time by cosmic rays, X-rays. There is a background tick to any Geiger counter that's turned on. And usually it's about 11 clicks per minute is normal. Anything higher than that is slightly abnormal. But there are a lot of things that can affect a Geiger counter, including sunspot activity, solar flares, even basements that have radon gas. And this is one of the reasons we started to employ using this, because radon gas is a fairly new phenomenon. It's probably maybe 10 or 15 years old. It's a gas given off by some basements, and it's slightly radioactive and can actually cause hallucinations. So therefore, if people have a large basement, which they spend a lot of time in, and they think they're seeing ghosts, well, they could be hallucinating off the radon gas. So we use this to test also for radon gas in basements. Another way that, not to debunk, an area, but just not to jump to the conclusion that what people are always saying is a ghost. Other devices are very useful in picking up cold spots in homes. If you've been, any literature you might have read about ghosts, they often do or create or have instances of coldness in the air. Cold spots that are actual physical sensations you walk into, you walk out of. They're sometimes very, very local, maybe only a few feet in diameter. Sometimes these don't even register on thermometers, but you can see your breath in a very small space. And I've had this happen many times, a very cold, cold spot. Now these devices are called Raytech non-contact infrared thermometers. And basically what they do, these guns at least, they do emit an invisible beam of light, infrared, but they give a contact reading. In other words, the beam of light goes out, hits an object, a wall, a door, a floor, a ceiling, and bounces back and gives you instantly the temperature. But it's giving you the reading of, a wall, a floor, a hall, and not the surrounding air. So there are other devices that are useful where they're handheld. They're about the size of slightly larger than a Bic lighter, that actually give you an air temperature reading, not a contact reading. And one of these devices actually will give you a humidity reading as well. And that's useful, again, going back to the idea of static electricity being built up in a home. If the air is very saturated, you won't have a lot of static buildup. Now, cold spots are interesting, but we've actually picked up hot spots too. We recently went into an antique store in Lamont, Illinois called Smoky Row Antiques. And this place was quite amazing. A lot of phenomena going on inside there, and a lot of antiques, family heirlooms, and just old objects. And we also happened to find in that area, in that main antiques floor, as you walk in, sitting on the counter, an old-fashioned Ouija board, 2 authentic voodoo dolls from New Orleans, and all kind of other weird objects, which may have been part of why this stuff was going on inside this antique place. And we were using this one device, and we were moving this device around a cabinet, a very old cabinet. On the top section, the top 2 shelves, we got a base reading of about 72 degrees. The bottom about 72 degrees. Right in the center, it jumped up to 90 degrees. Now, there was nothing there. I mean, in fact, this was even a cool evening, and it was very cool in the building. And there was nothing, you could touch it, and it didn't feel like it was 90 degrees. Skin temperature was about 96 degrees. But it was quite warm in the center. We couldn't explain that. So that's why sometimes these are very useful in detecting ghosts or hot spots. My real forte, though, is photography and getting into actually capturing images either on cameras or video. We use a lot of Sony cameras, Sony night shot cameras. You probably have heard about these cameras. They literally can project an infrared beam in total darkness and see a room illuminated pitch dark as though it's brightly lit. And we can use these under very, very low light conditions. Unfortunately, they do give a lot of false signals, and you do kind of pick up a lot of what's so-called orbs. You might have heard of these orbs. Now, I'm a little skeptical of a lot of orbs only because I understand a lot of natural reasons orbs show up. And I can give you some very clear examples. Try this experiment if you want. Take a Sony night shot camera or any 35mm camera and shake a dusty rag in front of it and snap a picture. You're going to see thousands of orbs, dust particles floating in the air, illuminated by the flash or by the infrared beam. An insect flying through the field of vision can also be detected as a moving orb. Certain digital cameras, under very low light conditions, can produce digital flaws, which are perfectly round, cylindrical little orbs of light, sometimes and most times semi-transparent, which are true digital flaws, areas that the pixels have not filled into that particular area of the picture, and it shows up as an orb. I'm not saying that orbs are not maybe all paranormal. There may be some very good paranormal orb images. I've not seen any so far. And the Sony night shot cameras, we don't use to pick up orbs, but we use just to document an area in motion picture, along with the 35mm cameras we use. I prefer to use 35mm cameras in conjunction with some of the equipment I just mentioned, because if you're getting a strong reading with one piece of equipment or your own intuitiveness, then you snap a picture in that direction. And then sometimes we use multiple cameras with different types of film, infrared film, black and white, high-speed film. And the use of multiple cameras is almost a must, because then you have 2 cameras shooting an area at the same time, the same instant, and if both cameras pick it up, or one or either, then you can use it as a comparison for what you might have picked up. If you really have a good budget, you may want to pick up a thermal vision camera. Now, thermal vision cameras, the top of the line Inframetrics camera goes for $60,000. Needless to say, I don't have one. Even the black and white cameras go for about $10,000. I've seen them used on television shows like Sightings. I think even the Ghost Hunters show has them occasionally, but I think because they're on TV, Sci-Fi Channel probably rents those cameras out for the show. I don't know of any group that can really afford to drop $60,000 into a camera unless you really have a budget or you're just independently wealthy. But these actually give you a motion picture of cold and hot spots in an area. The cold being the deep blue, the purples, the hot being the red and the orange on the other end of the spectrum. And you can then kind of pan through a room and find out where the cold spots are located, where the ghost may be. Now, how is this all used in the field? Well, obviously, you take this, I've taken it to places like, these are kind of a little bit dark here, but out to Joplin, Missouri. Joplin, Missouri is an area southwestern Missouri, which has been known for many years to have a spook light or a ghost light out there. And there we go. As long as I don't fall or something, we'll be fine. This ghost light has actually been seen out in the Joplin area since 1881, long before there were automobiles. So the automobile theory, which is often the all-explaining theory on what these ghost lights are, reflections of automobile headlights or simply automobile headlights in the distance, does not fit the pattern here. I first observed this light on Labor Day weekend of 1982. This is an actual picture of the spook light that we took using color slide film, 400 speed film, using a long 20 or 25 second exposure. You can see generally the road going down the kind of V in the trees where the road continues, and you can actually, what looks like cars parked on the side of the road. People come out here just to look and gaze at the spook light. Now, what is it? Well, I've written an entire book, which I have here, called Illuminating the Darkness, the Mystery of Spook Lights. And I believe that spook lights are really, or could be, two things. Now, they could either be the spirits of people, something coming back in a ball of light, or in some cases, even in Joplin, could be a portal, an interdimensional doorway, if you will, from one side to the other. And this has been told to me by several people, including a psychic that I worked with for a number of years, Pat Schenberg, who was the past president of the Illinois Society for Psychic Research. And after telling her the story, she soon agreed that it was probably a portal. Now, we saw this light. You can see some cars parked here looking at this light. When we saw this light, myself and other members of the Ghost Research Society, it was off to the left of the road. And it was near a barn. It wasn't even on the road. And it looked like it was a bonfire. Somebody was just simply burning leaves out there in the distance. Now, when I looked through very high-powered binoculars, what I actually saw, and it was verified by two other people that looked through the same binoculars and saw the same thing, we saw a triangular-shaped object that had a hollow center to it, like looking through nothing. It was like a hole in the center. Now, as we crept up this road to get to the spook light, it kind of played tag with us because there's a number of hills up and down Spook Light Road. And as it got behind, dropped down behind a hill, in its wake, it left behind little pinpoints of light, a twinkling phosphorescence, if you will, effect, a shimmering effect. As we topped the hill, no more than 15 seconds later, the spook light was a half to a 3/4 of a mile down the road, just like that. This is a very good example of car headlights on the left, car tail lights on the right, the red, and directly above them is the spook light. people travel up and down this road all the time, and a lot of people don't know that it's been haunted for a number of years by this ghost light, this spook light. Now, yes?
Can you point those things out?
Sure. I believe I have a laser pointer right here. This is the car headlights, or actually the running lights of an automobile. Directly to the right of it is the red lights of a tail light. And directly above it, that little orange thing, is actually the spook light. If you read about spook lights in folklore and legend, the story you'll get in many cases is that it's somebody who has lost their head in a bizarre accident, and it's their ghost coming back with a lantern looking for their head, which always kind of, tickled me kind of fancy, because if you don't have a head, how can you be looking around looking for your head? But that's the theory, or at least the folklore, behind ghost lights. There's reports out here of two Indians on opposite tribes that went off to, be together against tribal law, and a war party was sent after them, and instead of being brought back, they both jumped to their deaths at the Devil's Promenade, a tall outcropping of limestone. And it's their ghosts that are seen along the road to this day. Others include subterranean gases, car light, tail light reflections, all different types of theories. I've seen it on all different weather conditions. It doesn't fit the pattern of car headlights and tail lights. This is an actual picture from 1965 of this light. Again, very brightened up. I purposely brightened it up a little bit myself before I brought it out here to show the light directly in the center of the road. Now, a series of photographs were actually taken by, and we were out there a number of times with the Joplin Globe, the local newspaper. And Martha Churchwell, who was a photographer at the time, went out to Joplin Spook Light Road just as it was beginning to get dark. You can see it's still light outside. If you look directly in the center of the road there, you can see a little squiggle of light, which is right here. If you look at the trees are in focus. It's maybe slightly blurred, but not enough to make that light move. So it's not a camera movement causing that squiggle. Another picture she took, a little bit dark, a little bit later, shows a very bright ball of light in the center of the road. Very close encounter. I believe I've had encounters as close as maybe 50 feet. The most amazing photograph she took, however, was the one that, as it began to move, it was in the center of the road, and it split off and went off into the woods to the left. And she was able to capture it using a very steady tripod and a time lapse. Now, one other light I wanted to also mention about, which is right here in this good state of Arkansas, is down in Gurdon, Arkansas, which is somewhere near Little Rock, and is often seen along this set of railroad tracks. In fact, to the left, as you cross over the tracks, you would go down the tracks to the third trestle, and you stop there and you look down the tracks, and people say they see this light. Now, it's been a project for high school students. A high school student a classroom went out there with the professor, camped out there the whole night. I was out there with the Arkansas Gazette back in 1982, and they were having a little fun with me. So I'm walking down, they were throwing stones next to me and throwing them in the water and trying to spook me out here, and it didn't work, but they tried. As we got further and further back down the trail, down this railroad track, and you gotta be careful you don't get hit by a train, and make sure that the light you're seeing is not an approaching train, because spook lights are often seen near either bodies of water, long narrow stretches of road, or train tracks. this is a couple of pictures that we got of what I believe to be the spook light. Now, it was totally dark out there, and yet we couldn't even see our hand in front of our face, so we just put the camera on a tripod and just left the shutter open. I didn't see these until I got the film back. This shows a couple of little red areas of light, but the more interesting photograph kind of shows this effect. Almost like a flower or on one side and a little streak on the other. These are above ground level, so these are not car lights going past. I guess we can turn the lights back on. But kind of to sum it up a little bit, we would use the equipment out there, obviously, to track down these locations where strong magnetic fields are located, or to use cameras, tape recorders, camcorders to document the images as well. I'll be happy to take any questions right now.
Have you ever attempted using...
Wait for the microphone. The microphones are coming. Oh, no, you just hand.
Have you ever... Hello? Yeah. Have you ever attempted using scrying?
Using what?
Scrying?
No, I have not.
Dowsing.
Dowsing, yes.
Yeah,
I didn't know that's what it was called. We have used dowsing rods on occasion. We use anything that we think that might better our chances to pick something up. And a couple of people have dowsing rods, and on occasion, the dowsing rods have crossed.
Okay. Just wondering whether or not it works in every other.
Yeah, it does.
Way, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't expect that it wouldn't work for that.
In fact, there's a woman very well known for her videotape, Patty Starr, called "Dowsing for Ghosts," that she actually produced. Shows how to use them in ghost hunting. Anybody else?
Has anybody ever taken a helicopter up near it, and have you ruled out UFO?
There has been the theory put forth that these could be UFOs, that they could be UFO related. A booklet that was put out in 1965 or 1967 by a man, I don't remember his name offhand, he's not with us anymore, but he did extensive research into all aspects of the Joplin spook light, the reports, people that live along the road that had seen it. According to his reports, the Army Corps of Engineers did a report or a study of the spook light road. The University of Michigan came out. All kinds of different researchers came out, and there was some people put forth the idea that these were UFOs. They're seen almost nightly along this road from dusk till dawn. So for, unless it's a UFO landing site, every night, I would kind of rule that out. Yeah.
Two questions. I would like to know what your definition of ghost is, and I would like an example of your communication with, have you communicated with or had interaction with?
My interpretation of a ghost would be a disembodied spirit of a once living person that for some reason hasn't quite made the transition from this world to the next, usually due to untimely death, murder, suicide, car crash, something sudden or violent. Hollywood has done a very nice job in recent years, movies such as Ghost with Patrick Swayze, the others with Demi Moore, Bruce Willis in Sixth Sense, and even White Noise. If you remember those motion pictures, those people that portrayed ghosts did not realize until later in the picture that they were ghosts because of the way they died, suddenly or violently. I myself have had instances where I believe I've come in contact with ghosts, not actually seeing one, but we've actually we've felt ghosts, cold spots. We've actually heard and recorded sounds that we could not ascertain where they were coming from, even EVP, electronic voice phenomena. And we also, on some occasions, have smelled odors in the air, fragrances, perfume, cigarettes, aftershave, pipe tobacco. A perfect example, about 2 years ago, we were in Gettysburg, again, the Triangular Field, doing some nighttime research out there. This was when the world was completely deserted. People were leaving the park that evening. And we distinctly smelled, out of nowhere, cherry pipe tobacco drift down the hill. We both, myself and my research assistant, smelled that. Within a few instances later, we heard the clip-clop of hooves, sound in the middle of a deserted, pitch-black battlefield, and then we actually saw a figure climbing up the hill. Middle of the night, no flashlight, very steep, rocky, loose dirt. Even a forest ranger would have had some sort of illumination flashlight. Now, we thought that might be a good time to leave, only because it was getting to the point we were going to be kicked out anyway from the park rangers about 15 minutes later. Unfortunately, we weren't able to prove that except on the videotape saying, "Did you smell that? Did you hear that? Did you see that?" Because it was just too far away for us to view that. So I believe I've had some encounters. Yes?
During 1953 and 54, I observed the Joplin Spook Light a number of times. That was the college thing to do. And it's an experience.
It is.
And I understand people still enjoy it very much.
The last time I was out there was 2000 and 2001, and for some reason we didn't see it at all. I've talked to several people in the conference today that came up to me and told me that they had also witnessed a light on several occasions. So at one time it was almost seen nightly from dusk till dawn. Anybody else?
How much of this equipment do you cart around with you, or do you plan what you're going to do and what you're going to find so that you know which things to take with you, or is this?
Yeah, if we're doing an indoor location, in say a house, a building, a movie theater, whatever, a business, we would probably bring more stuff because it's easier to set up and it's protected from indoors. If we're doing an outside investigation, we might just bring handheld devices that we can walk around with, but we would bring the things that once we know what's going on, once we interview the people and we have an idea what's going on, it gives us an idea of what equipment to bring along, what they're experiencing, if they're experiencing something visual, something auditory, or something through smell or feelings. Yes?
What?
On now.
They're messing with me. I have a question about how often when you do these experiments or sightings that you do you take along a psychic, intuitive, or some person like that?
We do them quite a bit often. Obviously, haunted houses and places like that as we get calls from people. Yeah, I know, it's leaking. I got a leak on my head, too. I thought it was rain coming through here. There you go.
Raining inside.
But we do bring along people that are intuitive. We have a couple of people in our, I don't call them psychics, I just say they're intuitive. They're sensitive, perhaps. But I have worked with psychics in the past that are legitimate psychics that have worked with police on missing persons and so forth, and they kind of got involved with the group as well. We have an organization where we go out almost every summer with the group and try to plan things at different locations that are well-known sites or brand new sites that we're invited into all the time.
And then do they normally stay in the same place?
I'm sorry?
They don't move, they stay in the same place all the time?
The ghost?
The one that you find out in certain place?
Well, that's kind of a good question. I mean, sometimes, you know, when we don't specifically go in to bust the ghost or
What
try
I
to
mean, they are territorial. That's what I meant by that question.
I'm sorry?
But the question I did is if they are kind of territorial.
Territorial?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, well, see, I believe they have their own free will. In other words, if they don't want to leave, they're going to stay right there. They may be strongly attached to something in the environment, like a person living there, maybe the house they lived in, or maybe even the, if it's a restaurant, a tavern, or someplace else. They're very territorial. They will stay right there and not move on.
And then when you find them, what do you do after that?
Well, again, I don't specifically go to remove them. I'm not in the removal service, so to speak. But I try to study them, research them, try to find out why they're there. And then sometimes with the help of psychics, we try to get them to accept their own death. Sometimes it's simply just a matter of explaining that they're not here anymore, that they should have moved on. The question was, do they ever go home with me? I've had a couple of instances where I believe they did follow me. I'll give you one real good example. We were investigating a home in Bartlett, Illinois, that was filled with antiques. This woman was an antique collector. She picked up things from all over the country. And they were seeing what looked like a little young boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old, walking down the stairs, walking to the edge of the stairs, and she had a 3-year-old boy. She thought it was sleepwalking, so she'd get up in the middle of the night, run to the stairs, nobody there, and her boy's sound asleep. Well, these things went on, and they eventually called us. We began getting a lot of real strange readings in that upstairs where a number of antiques were, including a pair of angel cherubs. Now, she eventually believed that this was the source of the haunting. And she said, would you mind if I got rid of these and shipped them to you? Well, of course, I had to ask my wife about that. And she said, well, okay, fine. So she boxed them up, sent them to me. I've yet to open the box, and I'll tell you the story why in a second. But I initially put them on the front porch, and I'm sitting in my lazy boy chair watching TV, and there's a window here leading to the front porch. It's not an outside window, but to the front porch, and I hear a bang on the window. There's nobody there. It's in the front porch, So then I'm at work one day. My wife's in the basement, and she hears people walking upstairs. And she thought I came home early, right over where these angel cherubs are, and she came upstairs. I'm still at work. She goes, get that box out of here. So I put it upstairs in the upstairs bedrooms, and sure enough, we hear walking upstairs now. So they've been very quiet for a while. I'm eventually going to open up the box. I'm trying to get a number of people to do an experiment with me. In other words, put the angel cherubs in one box and put the same weight of wood in 3 other boxes and mark them A, B, C, and D, and give them to 4 people, and then have all 4 people switch them around and figure out who's got the real ghost in the box. It's kind of a scientific study. I haven't yet to find 4 people that want to do it so far. Anyone else?
Just curious with your comment about your wife, how she's involved with what you do. Is she on board with it, or is she afraid of it? Or?
No, she's not afraid. She's a believer in them to an extent. She's kind of my, I guess, my skeptical person, kind of that levels me out when I go to these locations. I try to stay a bit further back, a step backwards and kind of look at it objectively, scientifically perhaps. I'll keep a bit of skepticism involved in the work that I do. She kind of levels me out, but at the same time, she wasn't too happy with hearing the sounds and hearing the noises in the house, but she often helps me look at the photographs. She's got a good trained eye, because I get a lot of photographs from people all throughout the world through my website that send me pictures that they want me to look at. But But all in all, I think she kind of keeps me on track.
Okay, there was time for a couple more questions. Anyway, who? Okay, back here, her.
My next door neighbor set up some cameras near Sears Tower. This was a few months ago, and what he got was these cameras were motion sensor cameras because he was studying either airplanes or trains. I don't know what he was, but he set them up so that he could see them when he wasn't there. But when he analyzed them, he found out he was getting a whole lot of rods, you know, the suspended things in the air.
Yeah.
And he thought, oh, there was some kind of flaw in the film, so he did it again. And then what happened was this time he was there looking through the viewfinder and he didn't see it, but there was a flying saucer that appeared on it. And I think it was during the daytime too. So I don't know whether you investigate things like that or not.
No, I don't get involved with UFOs, but I have kind of in the photography area, I do anything that is on film, video, 35 millimeter, SX70, Polaroid film, anything like that interests me. There is a website known as roswellrods.com, and this guy a number of years ago discovered that in broad daylight, videotaping, he was seeing rods go through the field of vision of his video camera. And of course, skeptics will right away say that it's insects, bugs, moths, dragonflies, you know, flying through there. But you can't see no wings. You can't see, and when you freeze the frame, they're curved. They're this way from 1/8 of a second. They're from here to here, and they're just moving and curling like an insect would not be able to do. And he's got some video, very interesting video on the site, which I looked at. So it may be similar to that. This guy was actually videotaping. He didn't see them until he played the stuff back, however.
Right. I told him he's going to give me copies of it. I don't know whether you want them or not to analyze them.
I would love to see them, yeah.
Oh, all right, I'll tell him that.
Yes.
Now, the other thing, too, is have you done research in the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery? Because I used to drive by there at night on my very first job, and I would see the lights. This is an old cemetery. It's on the outskirts of Chicago.
Yeah, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Midlothian, Oak Forest area was
Yes.
the first location that I first investigated. What really kind of got me interested in ghost hunting to begin with, because of all the stories that people have told throughout the years of seeing a disappearing house out
I
in
saw
the
that,
back.
too. I did see that.
Blue ghost lights floating through the
Yes.
cemetery at night. A woman carrying a baby in her arms, dressed in a wedding gown or a bridal gown. And even what 2 Cook County forest rangers saw one evening on routine patrols, they were going down Midlothian Turnpike around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. They claimed to have saw a farmer and a horse dragging a plow that came out of the lagoon, crossed directly over 2 lanes of highway, disappeared in the Rubio Woods across the street. Now, they never officially reported that story because probably being fear of ridicule or laughed at or passed over for promotions or something. But it's a location that I've had an opportunity to go into many times. In fact, we recently got permission to go into it at night with the forest rangers and do some experiments out there.
Do you ever see the lights? Because I did.
No, I've talked
When I used to drive by there, I didn't know anything about it because I came from the south side of Chicago. The place I was teaching at was in Tinley Park, and I had to go down Midlothian, through Midlothian to get to it. I also saw the house that you're talking about, the disappearing house. It's a little white frame house, and I saw it right near a golf course there. And I saw it 3 or 4 times, sometimes at daytime, sometimes at night. One time I saw it on fire. The next time I went by, it was there again. The next time it was on fire again. And this is during the day now.
Yeah. That's most of the sightings seem to be during the day.
We have time for one. This is the last question.
I wondered if you'd ever researched Eureka Springs old hotels. If so, what kind of readings did you get?
Never been there yet. I've heard about it. I want to be there. It's one of the 10 on my top 10 list. You know, David Letterman has his top 10. That's one of my top 10, including the Myrtles Plantation. But I do want to get there one of these.
There's more than one hotel in Eureka that is haunted.
Yes.
Not just the Crescent. the Basin Park also.
I wasn't aware of that.
That's where they have the music that plays at night, where the sisters play the piano every night. So there's a lot of haunted places up there. Okay, but we're running out of time, and I think he's done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to DoloresCannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.